us in the morning or at night, there's nothing better than a sober sunrise. We hope that you enjoy today's speaker.
Wow. My name's Zach. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is July 11th, 2008. My home group is Neck Breakers. We meet on Monday nights on 1941 Dauphine Street. That's the corner of Dauphine and Turl. There's a parking lot there. We do a lot of exciting things. We have 2 10-minute speakers, a coffee break, and then an Ask It basket on, I think, June 26th. Is that a Monday? June 26th, the last Monday of the month anyway, we're having a speak and meet. And this is something I learned from my sponsor is once you become a part of a group, whatever the group decides, you support that, regardless of what you may or may not think. That's somewhat difficult for me sometimes. I come back to the group and they tell me we're having a chili cook-off in June. I come from Iowa. We don't even eat chili in Iowa in June, but it's, this is going to be great. So please come. Bring chili from your home group. Make the best chili. I challenge you right now. Be there, June 26th. That was very kind. I love Brian. When I first met him, oh my God, he things happen in Alcoholics Anonymous where you're sitting across the room and you're telling your story and some guy's nodding and then you see him slowly approaching you and you think, oh God. This guy's going to ask me to sponsor him. And he did. He told me he was a professional snowboarder, that he had a college scholarship to play baseball, and I believe that he was Wiccan, which there's nothing wrong with being Wiccan. It's a beautiful religion. Do what's right. Do what's next. But he wasn't Wiccan. He just had a Wiccan ring. And we'd start reading the big book together and we'd start talking and he really wanted to teach me all the things that he knew about life and about spiritual experiences. And generally, as most of you know, before we get here, our spiritual experiences come through LSD or mushrooms. He had a lot of beautiful ideas. And really, I would have bet you dollars to donuts he was not going to stay sober. Probably people here can tell you they would have bet you I wasn't going to stay sober. But what I did is I showed up every week at that treatment center because somebody did that for me. And I met with this guy. And it was surprising because what happened is he started doing all the stuff in the big book. And I saw his life change. I saw this guy who, his plan when he went to treatment was to steal his dad's car while his dad was talking to the counselor and drive back to Ohio. That's a 16-hour drive. This was the best the kid had. He was a degenerate. He stole his dad's refrigerator and then lied about it. That's hard to get away with. So here's this guy with no hope who's going through all this stuff, and he's doing it. And I see him changing. And I did something in the beginning that really got me hooked up and got me to where I love my sponsor, and I think he loves me. And what it was is we'd do a nightly inventory. And this is after going through the few steps and write down these questions from page 86. And Brian was doing that every night. And what started happening is I'd feel guilty when I wasn't doing mine. And I think that's how this thing works. And then I see this guy who I've told you about his best plans get into a relationship. I think, that's not going to work. And then I see him have a child, and I think, that's not going to work. And then I'm at the hospital, and this little baby is steaming in my hands. And I've been able to see him be a father and be an amazing, man to his woman. It's through Alcoholics Anonymous, through the same stuff somebody else told me. Because before I got here, my problem was not necessarily that I thought Alcoholics Anonymous was stupid, or I thought the book was dumb, or you all were idiots, which I did. But my biggest problem was that I didn't write it myself, that I didn't come up with it. Because all my life I consider myself a smart guy. Growing up, I grew up in Iowa. And I was one of those guys who I needed to know everything. And if you asked me about something and I didn't know it, I lied about it. I couldn't let you know that I was afraid. I couldn't let you know that I didn't know something, because what would you think of me? So I had to prove myself. And the way you prove yourself when you're in Iowa, that day and time, is you fight. You don't show your feelings. You don't talk about any of that. When I was 13 years old, I was at my friend Jeff Witt's house. We found some lime-flavored vodka and Mountain Dew, and we had some Iron Maiden, and it was just the two of us. Oh, man. Have you ever seen lime-flavored vodka and Mountain Dew on your shirt, combined with the other things that you've eaten? I mean, both of us. We had it on our shirt, and I had a blast. And it was a beautiful thing. I love getting drunk. I'm not here because I don't like getting drunk. I'm here because I got to a place where I didn't like being sober. Ever. I woke up every morning and I thought, I can't do this anymore. This is horrible. I'm living in another country. I've gotten fired from all the jobs, and I just can't do this anymore. Yet your ideas didn't work. So I get drunk for that time, and I didn't get drunk regularly, but I did whenever I could get it. On Monday morning in school, I was thinking about how are we going to get booze on Friday night. On Friday night, I was getting as much as I could, and I was the guy by the keg pumping the keg. Not because I was altruistic, because I wanted to make sure when that keg started bobbing that we passed around the hat and got more. And I didn't know that was alcoholism. All I knew is that was me having fun. And it was a lot of fun, and it took away all those cares and worries, and it made everything all right. I got to touch Melissa's butt. You know, Melissa would never let me touch her butt without alcohol. And it was magic for her, and it was magic for me, and it was absolutely beautiful, and I couldn't get enough of it. And then on Monday, I'd say, Melissa, do you remember when we were out by that creek? And she'd say, let's not talk about that. So it was this magic elixir, and I got drunk, and I went to college, and I wanted to play football, and I was 17 years old, and I was the big shot, like the gentleman talked about last night. I was the big shot who, all of a sudden, I wasn't the big shot anymore. I was just that new guy. And I drank myself out of that school. I went and followed around bands. I thought I was on a search. I thought I was bohemian, which Van said means you don't shower and you sleep on your couch of friends. And so I left there, and I was still having fun. Don't get me wrong. I was having a blast. I got to do a lot of things. I got to see a lot of bands. And I went back to that school, though. I was in Omaha, Nebraska, weighing about 150 pounds, because I found this magical stuff that helped me to drink without blacking out. And a friend of mine looked at me that I'd grown up with and said, what has happened to you? You used to be strong. You used to be excited. You look like you haven't slept in 3 days. You look like shit. And it hurt me. Here's my friend telling me this. We don't talk about these things. We talk about chicks and football in Iowa. Maybe wrestling. Unless you're not good at wrestling, then you never talk about wrestling. And he was opening up to me. And it hurt. It struck a wound. And so I went back to school. And I worked out all that spring semester, and I got pretty damn big. And I was a starting member of the football team in the fall. And what happened is like Bill talks about, I had arrived. Now I'm a star on a football team, and I'm still getting drunk. It's no big football team. It's little Division III, but I'm getting drunk, and people are telling me how great I am. And people, teammates, younger guys are saying, God, I wish I could be like you. You know, you get drunk on Friday night and show up and have 15 tackles on Saturday. And there's shame in that. I finished all of that school. When you're in a city like that, it's a small school, a small city, you get in trouble, and what happens is the police drive you home. Duke drives you home because they know that the college needs to win on Saturday. And you think you can get away with anything. And you think you're pretty special. And people don't really matter because they're just what can I get from you? What can I get from you? And it's never enough. And I think that's what alcoholism is. It's never enough. If I have this, I want more. If she likes me, I want her to like me. If all of you come up to me and say, Zach, you did a good job, and this guy says, you were horrible, I hated you, all I can think about is that one guy who said I was horrible. I don't know why that is. I think deep down maybe it's alcoholism. I think deep down it's this sense of separation that I'm different than you, that I'm separate from you. And it's a lie. And the only thing that made that lie not a lie anymore was getting drunk. When I got drunk, I felt connected to everyone. I walk into a bar, I hate everybody there. I have a shot of Jameson and a beer, all of a sudden I love everyone. And then maybe 10 more shots and 10 more beers, I hate everyone again. It's this vicious cycle. When I drank, I couldn't predict who was going to come out. I may be the funniest guy in the world. I may be everybody at the bar loves me. Go home with a beautiful woman. 2 nights later, everybody hates me. I'm breaking glass. I'm trying to fight with people, and I wake up in jail. And I say, how did this happen? And this stuff happened over and over and over again. And what I would do is I would get out of jail and I would say to myself, I'm never going to drink again. And then I'd be walking to the Quickie on Tulane Avenue. And I'd have $14 in my pocket. And I would walk in there with the intention of getting some Winston's and some milk. I meant it. I found out Winston's are stronger than Marlboro Reds. If you still smoke. And I would walk into that store with milk, Winston's, milk, Winston's. And then I'd walk out with the 24-ounce beer. And it would get that thing started again. And I didn't know I didn't have any control over that thing. I thought I'd just decided to go party. And for 3 or 4 days, I'd be out getting wasted. And I'm the type of guy, when I have romantic notions about drinking, it's not being in a place like this and drinking champagne and having beautiful steak delivered to me. It's being out on the street with the homeless people and yelling at the people walking by, you're all a bunch of slaves. You're a bunch of idiots. You don't know anything. You're going to work. What is wrong with you? That's what I like. Oblivion. You know, I mean, I got arrested I don't know how many times in New Orleans. That stuff does not make me an alcoholic. People told me if you just stop doing these things, if you just, get right, if you just stop drinking hard liquor and try beer, you'll be okay. What I do is I go have a water between every drink. Why don't you do that, Zach? And I do that, and I just pee all over the place. I can't, because it's it doesn't help. I have well-meaning people. I worked for a construction guy after Katrina. He loved to drink. He was a good old boy who'd have 5 or 6 beers every day after work. And he'd say to me, Zach, go home after this one. Go home after this one. I'll buy your next one if you go home. Adrian, make sure he goes home, he'd tell the bartender. And I'd tell him, I'm going home after this one. And I meant it. And what happened was this one became this one, became this one, became this one. And I'm stumbling home at 3 in the morning, and I'm up at 7 in the morning because I've got to go work for this guy. I can't control the amount I take. I have no choice once I put the alcohol into my system. So I went to Korea. I was 26 years old. I was moving out to San Diego, California. I didn't realize you couldn't live on $900 in San Diego, California. I didn't have any other money. That $900 was gone in about a week. And a friend said, come on out. And I mean, this was a beautiful, I was in another country for the first time. I had an exotic woman from New Zealand. I loved it. I was running my school. Imagine this. I am in charge of 3 other teachers. I'm the head teacher. And these other 3 teachers, my brother, who's actually in jail right now, and 2 of my friends who worked at a restaurant with me. None of these guys have college degrees, and I'm in charge. The director made the mistake of the first night I was there saying, I'm going to pay for this, you drink whatever you want. We drank every beer in the restaurant and had to start going to soju. You know? I'm wandering around a country where drunken old men are holding hands like this, and I'm the one getting kicked out of bars. I can't even speak the language. Just my actions are you need to go. And at that time, there was something in me. Since the beginning, there's been something in me that knew I need to stop this. I need to do something. But whenever I would stop, whether I was in Korea, wherever I was, what would happen is, what are you going to do? I've always considered myself a creative. I've written all my life. And so, here's the thing. With alcohol, I have a problem. I drink alcohol, it's gone. With sobriety, I stopped drinking alcohol. I have a huge problem. And I think it's going to be fixed if I can just publish this short story. If I can just get her. If I can leave this country and go to this country. If I can get another job. And I think these things are going to be immediate. And it's not that way with sobriety. It's a journey, you know. I left South Korea, and I didn't want to live in the United States anymore. So in January of 2004, I came to New Orleans. And what a beautiful place for a drunk and for a sober drunk. If you come to me and say, I can't find any sponsees, I'm guessing you've locked yourself in your closet and haven't left for 3 or 4 days. They're everywhere. They are all over these streets. They're seeping, they're oozing, they're dying. And I loved them. I had so much fun with these drunks in New Orleans. You're in the French Quarter. It is not abnormal to start drinking at 9 o'clock on a Monday morning, or a Tuesday, or a Wednesday. And it's just, you know, it's a place of ultimate freedom. And you believe it's free. And it's normal. And so what happens is I'm going in and out of jail in New Orleans. And I'd been to some AA meetings before. At this time, I'm 30 years old. I'd been to some AA meetings when I was 23. I was attracted to them. I was attracted to the stories. There was a guy who had a couple girlfriends and he ran drugs. That was a neat story. You know? There was a guy who was in Chicago and he played a horn and he pawned his horn and these are great stories. Johnny T said something interesting last night about when he was on fire, or I'm guessing he still is on fire. I can't be that loud. But he wanted to go around and make all the meetings big book study meetings. I have a different idea. I think all the meetings should be speaker meetings. Because I think that's what we have. The big book saved my life. But what got me into the big book was the story of another alcoholic. A lot of stories of a lot of alcoholics. That's what we have. You look at any way back, any religion, anything, lessons are told through stories. They aren't told by you do this and you do that. and if you don't do this, you're going to die. They're told true stories. And my heart opened when another guy opened his heart to me. I don't know how I got from jail to there, but let's go back to jail. So I start going to these meetings. Because I was young. And I thought it was stupid. And from 23 to 30, I told people I went to Alcoholics Anonymous. Those people don't know what they're talking about. I tried Alcoholics Anonymous, and it doesn't work. The truth was, I didn't try Alcoholics Anonymous. I tried your cigarettes. I tried your coffee. I tried to try your women. They weren't always receptive. But at 30 years old, I was in New Orleans, and I was pretty damn depressed. I was going down pretty quickly. And I was living in a house that they told me I didn't have to pay rent for a month if I took out the old floors and put in the new ones. And I took out the old floors. And then I slept in the bathtub for a couple weeks. And it's nasty, and there's mosquitoes. And so I start going to AA meetings, and I go to AA meetings on Central Avenue in Metairie because I'm embarrassed that I might see people that I know from New Orleans. This is the same guy who at 6 in the morning is yelling at people, calling them slaves for going to work. And what I'm embarrassed about is that I had to ask for help. That's what I'm embarrassed about. And guys reached out to me. You know, I did 10 years ago. I did a third step in the middle of the hood, on my knees, with all my neighbors watching. And then I wrote half of a fourth step. And then I got drunk for another 6 months. I ended up in Prague teaching students there. I was drunk for 7 months straight, and I walked up to the window a number of times, and it said the meeting is at noon, and the next meeting's at 6, and every day I went there at 12:30. And one day an Irish guy came out and said, "Why don't you come in here?" And so I sat in that meeting, and I didn't say anything, because what I'd done before at AA meetings is I'd expounded my wisdom, whatever latest book I was reading. I was fond of electric Kool-Aid acid tests, so I'd quote that and other ones. And I shut up. Part of it was because I didn't know what to do anymore. Part of it was I wanted you to think I was mysterious. And a guy came up to me and he said, "Why don't you stay a little bit after the meeting?" I said, "All right." And we talked, and he told me some of his stories. What attracted me to this guy is he was a heroin addict whose alcoholism just went to heroin. He just found a bunch of powdered alcohol. But he had what I had. Once he started drinking, he couldn't stop. When he tried to quit, he couldn't stay quit. And what he told me was that he would, despite being vegan, that means you don't eat eggs or meat or any kind of fish, none of that. But he would share needles with people that he didn't know, that he met in an alley. This made sense to me. He also told me when he was 22 years old, he went into a psychiatrist's office, and she was beautiful. She had degrees on the wall. She had all these things. She was in a nice suit. And he started talking to her, and she started responding, and he thought, "I think she wants me." I could relate to that insanity. I was just telling this guy before the meeting, I was at a 4 a.m. meeting in New Orleans when I was trying to get sober, and I shared my guts. I shared the truth all about everything. And this woman from New York starts crying. It's a convention. And I think she wants me. I've got her. Because that's all I use these stories for. I use stories to intimidate you, to impress you, to get in your good graces? Any of it. This guy said, why don't we read this book together? I said, oh, contraire, mon frère. You don't understand. I've already read this book a number of times. I use this book as a roach holder. I would put my roaches from my joints in there to mark the pages so that hopefully someday I'd be so desperate I'd be going to get high and something would happen and I just, what used to be the something, the hauncher, gradually became a working part of it. I don't know. But for some reason I said yes. And we started going through that book together. And what happened, I already said, I think, something of the effect that it's not so much the book. It's what the book can do, how it can transform your life. And I think more of what was happening is, it was the first time in my life that I asked somebody for help. I asked somebody for help a number of times and meant it. But it was the first time in my life I asked for help, I meant it, and then I just said yes. And then I just said, what next? And then I just said, I don't know what I said, but it was some kind of I was supplicating. I just did everything because I was done. I had a full realization I can't do this anymore. I can't do it. We got to the fourth step, and I started writing all these resentments. And he kind of tricked me. He said, I want you to write down all the names. And I wrote down all the names. Okay, now I want you to write down why you resent all those people. I'm thinking, all right, I'm about done. Now I want you to write down, these 7 parts of self that it affects. And I'm like, all right, now I'm done? No. We haven't even gotten to the real stuff. See, when I got through with those resentments, I had about this much of an ability to realize that every problem I have ever had, I am a huge part of. And also, what I've since realized even more and more and more, when I resent somebody, when I have a problem with somebody, it's either because I'm deeply afraid of something. It's always because I'm deeply afraid of something. But even more, I'm looking at myself. You are never the person making me angry. You are the mirror that allows me to change. Think about that. It's a horrible thing to think about. You don't get to be resentful anymore very long. My beautiful, wonderful, amazing girlfriend told me yesterday that she was going to put grass on her lawn. I think that's a horrible thing. I think trees and things should be planted and grass is a horrible crop. In my mind, that went to, she doesn't respect me. How selfish can she be? Then it went to, what have I even gotten myself into? I'm with a woman that believes in grass. This is how quickly my mind goes to, and I'm out. The difference is, I didn't say, this is ridiculous, I'm out of here, baby. I said, I love you, I'm going to talk to you later. Right? I pause when agitated or doubtful because it's never real. He starts taking me through the book. I'm on an island in Prague. It's beautiful. The castle is in the background, Hradčanska, and I'm writing my inventory. And there's people going by on paddle boats, and they're drinking, I don't know what they're drinking, Staropramen, and they're smoking joints. And one moment I'm thinking, thank God I'm not those horrible people. And the next moment I'm thinking, God, I just want a joint and I want to drink and but I was doing it. I was doing it. I was writing. I was becoming a member of something that before that I had just been sitting and taking up space and wanting you all to fix me and wanting to come and tell you all my problems so that maybe you could get me a lawyer. That's what I thought AA was. And I kept going and I kept writing that stuff. And what happened was that sponsor gave me a week to finish. And it took me 11 days because if you haven't noticed, I'm rather verbose. It was long. I just kept writing and writing and writing. You don't need to write as much as I did. But it took me 11 days. And that was writing 1 hour every day. And that was with a crazy man who thinks he needs to publish a novel. Okay? A 4-step doesn't take that long to write. He left the country. And I realized that I either had this guy, Michael Brewer, or this other guy who was English. This English guy had 10 years. Michael had 5 months. And these people, see, they'd tricked me. They'd had me show up early for the meeting. They'd have me make people, they have tea over there. And they'd have me make espressos at this Friday night meeting. That was my job. And I thought they were taking advantage of me. And they would have me, when people came to visit, I would walk those people all around Prague. As long as they wanted. Because I didn't sleep. I just walked the people around and I did stuff and I told them things. And I was doing something for other people. And I look back on it and I really think the reason I chose this guy, who's still sober and has some children over there and things are great, is I felt like it would help him. This guy had done dozens of 5th steps. This guy hadn't done one. Also, if I'm brutally honest, he might not be as harsh a critic as this guy. I thought maybe, I thought they were going to whip me. I thought they were going to, oh my God, you did what? You touched her where? Oh God. Like, this is what I thought was going to happen. And what happened is, as I'm saying these things to this guy that I think are horrible, he's saying, yeah, me too. I told this guy that a woman in my writing class, I was drunk, asked me how she could be a better writer. And at the time I thought, you need to suffer. You want to be a writer, you need to suffer. That's what Hemingway said, right? That's what a tough Iowa boy says. And I said she hadn't suffered enough, and if she was beaten or raped, it would make her writing better. This is who I become when alcohol is in my system. It's a horrible thing. Horrible, horrible thing. And he told me some horrible things that he'd done. And although it didn't change what had happened, I got a little bit freer. Because most of what happens, I see, is people sit around with secrets. If there's a problem of separation, and that's the ultimate problem, I will never be in communion with you when I'm holding on to a secret. Because I'm different. No matter what you say or do, I am different. Because you don't understand. Because I can't tell you this, and I can't tell you that, and I can't tell you this. I got back to, I made some amends. I was teaching kids over there, and like I said, you would have loved me as a teacher. We smoked joints by the river and played hacky sack and drank beer, and I couldn't show up for that job anymore. That's how screwed up I was. I made amends to those people. Those kids. I didn't do a formal amends. I went and bought them all pizza, and I told them, I'm sorry that I've let you down. And I'm sorry that your new teacher is a shithead who doesn't let you smoke weed. And, it was kind of the beginning. And then I went around and made amends to the places I was working for, the schools that I was working for, that I was stacking jobs on top of each other and not going to either of them and getting paid. I went and made amends to them. And then I went and made amends to everybody. And I called my sponsor, who was in the States, and he said, slow down, man. Are you the Jesse James of amends? What are you doing? And what he meant was not slow down, but to talk to him first before I did this. And thank God I did. And so I get back to the United States, and I'm about 2 months sober, and I'm lit up. For the first time in my life, something's different, and I'm excited. And I get to Iowa, and I'm going to meetings there, and my sponsor's on the phone telling me, you need to find some sponsees. You're going to die if you don't find sponsees. And I'm going to meetings, and I'm trying to find sponsees, and people are telling me, you only have 2.5 months. You can't sponsor anyone. And see, he had taken me through the big book. He'd armed me with not just facts and knowledge about himself and myself, but about the history of Alcoholics Anonymous, about the fact that Ebby Thatcher was, 6 weeks sober when he went and carried the message to Bill Wilson? That Dr. Bob was 16 days when they went and saw Bill Dotson in the hospital? That what they said to Bill Dotson, the third man on the bed, was, all right, you've done this after a week, now go out there and give it away to someone who wants it and needs it badly. I knew all this stuff, but I didn't have my army behind me. And I started thinking, screw these people. They don't know how to do AA correctly in Iowa. And I got high for 3 days. It was just little stuff. And I come back down to New Orleans, and I'm a month and a half sober, and oh man, nobody in New Orleans was doing it right either. It's true. 2008, I was going to meetings and letting them know they weren't doing it right. And then I ran into some guys, and they were talking the same kind of stuff that these people in Prague were talking. And what I realized they were talking was Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't know. I thought the meetings kind of were Alcoholics Anonymous. And we started running around. And I asked this. There were 3 guys who came up to me, and this one guy was sober longer, and he had a big beard and an accent. And I just followed him around because he was kind of intimidating, and I didn't want to ask questions that would make him think I was stupid, like, where are we going? Or, when am I going to be home? So I just went. And the beauty of it, like, these are the most beautiful memories. I was just talking to a guy in a treatment center, and I said, man, you don't know how good you have it. You're sitting out there with hundreds of alcoholics. Stop looking at them as people you think are bothering you, and look at them as God's grace and an opportunity to change your life. And your life will change. I think I just said it a little more eloquently than I said it to him, but I started going with this guy, and I got a home group, and I became a part of that home group, and these guys, Brent and Sean, were there, and it was 7 or 10 people. And what was beautiful about it is what we were doing is all of us were talking about sponsorship. And the meetings I had been to before that, when I heard somebody talking about sponsorship, you know what they were talking about? Well, I got to call my sponsor every day, and I got to check in with my sponsor, and I stopped calling my sponsor, and I stopped going to meetings, and I got drunk. And what I learned was, if this is all I'm doing, I am going to get drunk. Or I'm going to get very discontented and maybe eat a lot. Or watch a lot of porn. Or smoke a lot. And so I'm kind of I can be combatant. So I would go around to people who said that about I stopped calling my sponsor, I stopped going to meetings, and I relapsed, and I would ask them, what did you do with all your sponsees? Oh, they don't like that question. They don't. So I fell in, kind of hook, line, and sinker. And I started going out to a place called Gateway on the West Bank at the recommendation of my sponsor. I was about a month and a half, 2 months sober. And these guys out there were crazy enough to think that I knew things. And they let me help them. They really did. And I knew everything. I was 3 months sober, and I knew everything. I started making a list for the home group. I go out here on Tuesday and Thursday. Here's the list of when I'm going out to the treatment center. I need you guys to fill in the other days. That's what I'm telling these guys who have, 10, 6, 4 years. You guys need to keep up with me. And I had this piece of crap van called a Lamborghini. It had a green door on one side, and it was gold, and it was an old Aerostar, and I filled that thing with alcoholics. And we would listen to a speaker tape on the way to the meeting, and they'd be drunk most of the time, and it was great. They loved that. And then on the way back, they'd be sober. And then sometimes we'd just talk. And I'd complain about these guys, and I'd say things like, none of them want to stay sober. Why am I going out there? I say, we don't go to those places because they're alcoholic. We go because we're alcoholic. And what happened is some of those guys I fell in love with. There's a guy named Richard V. who the first time I think we were just reading, or I might have made the mistake of saying God, the word, and I thought he was going to bite my head off. This guy was a gunner, a helicopter. He shot people down in Vietnam. There is no God when you shoot people down in Vietnam. Sorry. 7 years later, that guy's working for the VA and helping people. He learned how to do that in Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, I'm driving back and forth, and part of it is I've got to impress these guys. See, because that's who I am. I need you to like me so that I'll be okay. And so I'm rolling up to Big Easy, and I've got the Lamborghini, and I've got, 8 overweight veterans in there, and it's sunk down. And what I do is I pull up to the side, and the door is right up here, but I pull up to the side so you can see my humility. I'm letting these guys out so they can walk up first. Then I'm going to go park about 2 or 3 blocks away and walk on my own. Generous, loving, humble. Here's the beauty of all of that. The action does not care why it's taken. The action does not care why it's taken. If I do good things for human beings to impress you, it doesn't matter. And what started to happen is the more people I started doing this for, the more my heart opened and the more I started to love. How much time do I have?
6 minutes.
I told you about all of that fighting and all of those horrible things, and that's how we grew up. And I'd like to tell a couple of men's stories and leave you all alone. The first one is that woman I said the horrible things to. She was on my list. And when I wrote a list, I think it was now, later, never. She might have been on the never, I don't remember. But that woman ended up publishing a book and was going to do a reading in Baton Rouge, which, as you all know, is near here, an hour away. And I was driving a limousine at the time, and what I decided was, if I'm not working on Saturday night, I'll go to her reading and I'll make amends to her. If any of you have ever worked in the service industry, you know you always work on Saturday nights. It's God's will. That is such a cop-out sometimes. People say it's God's will. I'm not going to do anything. It's God's will. I want a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Get the bread. So I don't do it. The next day, I'm in between shifts at the limo job. I'm at a coffee shop called the Bean Gallery, right there. In walks her and a friend of hers. Her name was Jen, is Jen. And I think, I can't do it when she's with this woman. It would be selfish. God says, bathroom for Casey. And so I walk up to Jen and I say, Jen, I said some things to you that no human being should ever say to another human being. You have never done anything but treat me with kindness, which is true. She was a sweet gal. You have never done anything but treat me with kindness. That was wrong, And is there anything I can do to make it right? And I kid you not, what happened was something between us just went, fell. Just right there, I felt it, and she felt it. And she looked right at me and she said, "You just did." Now, here's what happens without Alcoholics Anonymous. Without Alcoholics Anonymous, I go around getting drunk and telling people that woman can't write, she doesn't know anything, she doesn't know this, she doesn't know that. And the reason is because I'm terrified to find out who I am, to find out what is underneath all that crap. And so to survive, I have to judge you. I have to make myself better than you. And what happens is when you sit down with another man, that goes away. It goes away. You're connected. And that's God. That's all. People, I don't know who and what God is. It would be hubris for me to stand up here and say, this is what God is. I know God's not me. I know God's available in all of you and in me. So, what has Alcoholics Anonymous given me? I lived in a storeroom with sawhorses and power tools. I would burn my leg on the little heating pipe when I first got sober. And I look back on it, and that was a beautiful beginning. I was running around, all I had to do was Alcoholics Anonymous. I told that guy in the treatment center, remember that you have all these people around you that will change your life. Because now I'm a very busy man. And even sometimes it's not just in here. You know, I have a house that I own. I have a woman that does not need me. Really, she doesn't. She'll tell you. She doesn't. Sometimes I even try to fix things with her that she doesn't know are wrong. And she's all right without me trying to fix it. All my life, I've found somebody who would kind of let me fix them. Because I couldn't fix myself. I still can't fix myself. From a trembling, despairing, nervous wreck emerged a man brimming over with self-contentment. Wait, self-contentment? Self-reliance and contentment. That's what the doctor sees. But I don't think that's the truth. Self-reliance never worked, and it still does not work for me today. I wake up in the morning, my mind is going crazy. I'm never going to get this, I'm never going to get that. I didn't eat. Should I eat? Did I eat? Maybe I should eat. Maybe I should do the dishes. Maybe. And then what happens is I pray and I meditate. And when I sit in silence, and thank you for the gentleman who did that this morning, that was beautiful. When I sit in silence, what happens is all the thoughts that I think are real are just thoughts. And it's saved my life. And I want to thank, some of my best friends are here. You know, some of my very best friends, people that I love are here. And those of you that I don't know, I love you too. And just thank you for listening, and I'm glad I'm done.
Thank you for listening to Sober Sunrise. If you enjoyed today's episode, please give it a thumbs up as it will help share the message. Until next time, have a great day. Welcome to Sober Sunrise, a podcast bringing you AA speaker meetings with stories of experience, strength, and hope from around the world. We bring you several new speakers weekly, so be sure to subscribe. We hope to always remain an ad-free podcast, so if you'd like to help us remain self-supporting, please visit our website at sober-sunrise.com. Whether you join us in the morning or at night, there's nothing better than a sober sunrise. We hope that you enjoy today's speaker.
Let's welcome today's speaker, Patty O.
Are you ready? We're ready. Thank you. I'm Patty. I'm an alcoholic.
Patty.
Grateful to be sober. I'm grateful to be in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. I have to make sure my machine's turned on. Otherwise, I would run out of oxygen, turn a nice shade of blue, fall over, maybe die. But I wouldn't stop talking, so don't y'all worry about that at all. I want to welcome the newcomers. I'm impressed. Well, it takes a lot to impress me, too, but I'm impressed by the number of people from out of state. I could barely find my way here from Orange County. So to get here from another state, God bless you. I don't know how you do that. Newcomers, welcome. If you took those chips, what you do with that chip, he said carry it in your pocket. Here's what you really do with it. If you want to take a drink, take that chip, put it on your head, and smash it with a sledgehammer. That's the reason we give them to you. None of this carry it in your pocket shit. Welcome to the Addicts. I hope you grab yourself a sponsor while you're here today. And I hope you find a sponsor who will take you through the book Alcoholics Anonymous, and I hope you will find your alcoholism. Because if you're alcoholic, we have a solution for you here. If you're not an alcoholic, you're just here for entertainment this morning. So find yourself a sponsor. Those people all stood up. They all want you. It's not like you're going to ask one of them and they're going to say no, so you don't have to be afraid of rejection here. The sicker you are, the more we want you. Grab yourself a sponsor and go. If you're a man, get Michael. Michael will not stop talking. So you won't even have to worry about saying anything. He'll just he's talking right now while I'm talking. He's just chatting it up here. So get yourself a sponsor, get a book, go through the book, and find your alcoholism. That's my Christmas wish for you, because I want you to have a solution. And what happens here, and this is what happens in Alcoholics Anonymous. And it doesn't happen anywhere else, but it happens here. We gather up here. We're gathered up this morning, except for those of us who had to do their Christmas shopping, because I'm telling you what, there's no empty parking spaces at the mall right now. But we're gathered up here this morning, and I'm going to tell a story, and it's going to be a dreary little story about alcoholism. But we gather up and we listen to a story. And when we leave, we're a little better than we were when we came in. And tomorrow we're going to gather up again, and somebody else is going to tell a story, and we're going to leave a little better than we were when we came in. And we're not going to know we're a little bit better. It's not like you're going to walk out and go, whoa, a little bit better. Patty O told a story. Little bit better today. You're not going to know you're a little bit better. But what's going to happen is in 2 or 3 days or a week or two, you're going to see Sally come in, and you're going to look and see a light's come on in Sally's eye. And then you're going to see John come in, and John's going to be walking a little lighter. And you're going to see that Sally and John are a little better. And you're going to realize if they're a little better, then you're a little better too. And it only happens in Alcoholics Anonymous. It doesn't happen anywhere else. I mean, go to the PTA and tell your story. And see how many of those people are better as a result of you telling your story. Doesn't happen. It only happens here. So we're asked in Alcoholics Anonymous to share what it used to be like, what happened, and what it's like now. And the reason we share that way is because it's our stories. It's my alcoholism that will touch somebody else's alcoholism. It's your alcoholism that touched mine. And my alcoholism woke up in meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. And at 40 years sober, I am still actively involved in Alcoholics Anonymous because I have to come here and listen to your alcoholism and have your alcoholism continue to touch mine so that mine can stay awake and I can stay sober through the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. But I need you for that. And I need you more this morning than I needed you on October 5th, 1975 when I met you. I need you more today. So I'm going to tell you my story. My sponsor always says, when I do this, she says, tell him your name and tell him the truth. Well, I've told you my name. I'm not so sure I'm going to tell you the truth. And the reason for that is clear for me. I mean, I didn't know that what it used to be like was going to be important. If I would have known that what I was going to be here, if I would have known I was going to be here this morning reporting to you what it used to be like, I would have paid more attention to my life. But I didn't know it was going to be important, so I didn't pay a lot of attention. Coupled with that, I'm a blackout drinker. I love blackouts. I love blackouts. I wish we could have blackouts sober. There's nothing more exciting for me than leaving work on December 12th, going back on December 14th, and discovering I'd been there the entire time. It just makes the time between paychecks so much shorter. So I love blackouts. But if you're not paying a lot of attention and you're a blackout drinker, it makes what it used to be like a little fuzzy. So a lot of what I report to you has been reported to me by other people. And I just have to believe they're telling me the truth. I mean, coupled with that, I had a job that I had to get a fingerprint clearance for, and I fingerprint really, really well. I'm good at fingerprinting. I roll right along with the printer. I don't go too fast. I don't resist it. I just roll right along. And I was being printed for my job. I didn't want to raise any red flags. So I said very casually to the woman doing my printing, I said, well, how far back are you going to check? And she looked me in the eye and said, from the day you were born. And I thought, oh my God, it's like a fifth step, only it's in the wrong order, because they're going to know about it before I do. And the book Alcoholics Anonymous says more will be revealed. It doesn't say how. So they sent my prints off. And I don't know if you have a lot of interaction with non-alcoholic people, but non-alcoholic people, when they're going to give us what they think is bad news, they tend to be a little hesitant. And this woman was really hesitant when she called me up. And she said, you know, your report came back. And I said, okay. And she said, normally these reports are 2 or 3 pages long. I said, okay. She said, yours was 56 pages. She said, do you want to see it? Well, of course I did. So I went down and read that report. And I can tell you this, I know a lot more about what it used to be like, having read that report, than I did before then. So I don't know if this story is true or not, but I like it, so I just keep telling it. I didn't have my first drink of alcohol until I was 13 years old. And I'm really sorry I waited that long. But I had absolutely no idea what alcohol would do to me or for me. I never thought I can't wait until I drink. I certainly never thought I would never drink. But I never thought about alcohol at all. And yet I'm 13 years old. I'm on a camping trip. We're on the beach just south of Oceanside. And I remember this Friday night as clearly as if it had been last night. I remember at 13 years old getting into the tent that night, and in my pillowcase I had a bottle of vodka. To this day, I don't know where that bottle came from. I've always believed it was the grace of God. But I've never been able to confirm that. But I remember the book talks about we have a sense of ease and comfort before we take a drink of alcohol. I had a sense of ease and comfort holding that bottle, having absolutely no idea what alcohol would do to me or for me. I asked if anybody wanted any, and they didn't. And the reason they gave me for not wanting it was all we had to mix with it was grape soda and root beer. And I said, so what? And I took off the top, and I drank half the bottle. I looked around the tent. Nothing had gotten different. Nothing had changed. So I drank the second half of the bottle. And that was to be the end of my social drinking. Never again after that day did I ever offer anybody a drink out of my bottle. And I don't know about y'all, but I never had resentments until I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. One of my early resentments in Alcoholics Anonymous is I heard you talk about your first drink, and you described the drink. You talked about the warmth in your mouth. You felt it as it kind of trickled down your throat. You felt it as it went down and it hit your stomach and it exploded. And it went to your fingernails and your toenails, and you grew a couple inches. You dropped 20 pounds. Your pimples fell off. I mean, wonderful things happened to you, and that wasn't the case for me. I had my first drink of alcohol, and absolutely nothing happened to me for about 15 minutes. And at the end of the 15 minutes, the only thing that happened to me was I had to go to the bathroom. And it's my belief this morning that if I were to drink a bottle of anything in about 15 minutes, I would have to go to the bathroom. So I got out of the tent and I shoveled through the sand to the outhouse. And when I went in and got done, I realized I was absolutely and totally paralyzed. I couldn't move. I didn't feel my heart beating. I couldn't blink. And I was overcome with a sense of fear. And of course, the fear was that somebody else was going to have to come use that outhouse, and there I was, paralyzed in the toilet seat. Later in my drinking, I would discover that two people can use the same toilet at the same time. If the second person is very careful about what they're doing, but that's a visual, right? But I didn't know that at 13. I did somehow, though, know that the body was made up of energy. And I somehow figured if I could gather my energy, I would be all right. Because I've always referred to it as my first formal meditation. Because I sat and I gathered my energy. And when it seemed to be in one place, when it seemed to be centrally located, I just sort of fell off the toilet, out the door, into the sand, and started crawling back to the tent. Now, when I got to you explained to me my entire problem that night had been my attitude. If my attitude would have been right, I could have had a fantasy as in the Marines, as being dive bombed, as I was trying to get back to safety. And if my attitude would have been right, it could have been a wonderful experience. In my own defense, I always have to report that my pants were still down at my ankles. I had started to get sick. I couldn't quite get through it. I couldn't get around it. And I've always contended under those circumstances it's a little difficult to have a good attitude. I did somehow manage to get back to the tent. I fell in and I passed out. And when I came to in the morning, I realized nobody was in the tent with me, and I couldn't figure out where they went until my eyes cleared enough that I realized I'd been sick all night long. I'd hit the top of the tent, the side of the tent, like you've never been sick, right? I hadn't missed a square inch, and quite frankly, I didn't want to be in the tent either, so I got out of there, and that was my first drink of alcohol. And it was the most wonderful, incredible, marvelous, magnificent, fabulous, awesome spiritual experience I'd ever had. And it must have been because to the best of my ability, I put some amount of alcohol into my body from that day until the day I came to the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I didn't always get drunk, and I didn't always drink the kinds of things that you would classify as a beverage. I drank a lot of vanilla extract. I used to buy it by the six-pack. I just recently found out that they make vanilla extract without alcohol in it anymore, which I think is a total ripoff for our children. But I remember the day the guy at the market called me over. He said, "Patty, I can't let you buy vanilla extract anymore." He says, "I can't believe anybody bakes as much as you do." And I got cut off from that supply. I drank a lot of mouthwash. I drank a lot of perfume. Taboo became my after-dinner drink of choice. I still have a weakness for it. If you're wearing it, I may follow you too closely and lap at your neck. But we know stuff. Alcoholics, we know stuff. We know stuff that other people don't know. And I don't know how we know it. We just know it. My next door neighbor's not alcoholic. They've been to my house a few times. They have never once eaten or drank a single thing out of my bathroom. But we know stuff. And I don't talk about it. I'm a bar drinker. I'm a living room drinker, an alley drinker, a backyard drinker, an office drinker, a car drinker, a kitchen drinker. I don't specialize. I just drink. But I love bars. I love sleazy, nasty, disgusting bars. This is a nice area. You probably don't have any here, but probably have to drive out of town a little bit. But they're the ones with the sawdust on the floor. The mirrors have cracked, so you kind of dip around to see yourself in there. The upholstery around the bar stool is ripped, or people tried to hold on as they're falling off their bar stool. It's always a nice touch if there's a piece of broken furniture in a corner somewhere, but they used to be full of smoke. I understand you can't smoke in a bar in California anymore, which makes no sense to me. I drank in bars where guys that take a piss against the wall. Apparently they can still do that, but they can't smoke in there. But they used to be full of smoke, and they had that wonderful used booze urine smell that I salivate still. I love that smell. I have friends that go to 7 a.m. attitude adjustment meetings. I'm going to tell you, if I need my attitude adjusted, I go buy one of those joints, open the door, take a hit off of that, and it just perks me up for the rest of the day. But I'm impressed by the quality of people who drink in those places. I mean, there were CEOs of big companies, bank presidents, admirals in the Air Force, neurosurgeons. I mean, that's what they said they were. I never told a lie in a bar, but we weren't having conversations like, well, what do you prefer, the red mouthwash or the green? What's your preference, Chantilly or Aqua Velva? We weren't having those kinds of conversations, so it doesn't occur to me I'm living any different than anybody else. I think I drink because I want to drink. I don't know that I don't have a choice. I don't know that at 13 years old I put alcohol into an alcoholic body, and from that day on, I had no choice. I think I drink because I want to drink. I went to college, graduated from San Diego State with a 3.8 grade point average. I share that with you because it almost killed me in Alcoholics Anonymous. Because when I got here, I told you I was too smart to be an alcoholic. Nobody with a 3.8 grade point average could possibly be an alcoholic. I can tell you this in retrospect. In hindsight, I was a chronic, hopeless, helpless alcoholic. I'm a daily drinker. I'm a blackout drinker. And I graduated from college with a 3.8 grade point average. I stayed at San Diego and took classes for a master's degree. I'm one of those people, if I'm doing something well, I want to keep doing it. Apparently, I do school well. And I stayed to take classes for a master's degree. I left San Diego because I'd taken all the classes San Diego State has to offer. My disease manifests itself in rationalization, justification, and denial. No matter what it is I do, I explain to you why I'm doing it. As I'm explaining it to you, I'm hearing it. As I'm hearing it, I'm believing it. And I think I'm leaving San Diego because I've taken all the classes San Diego State has to offer. I don't think I'm leaving because I have a roommate who's a little annoyed with me. And, I'm in a bar drinking. Even in the height of my compassion, or in my alcoholism, I've had a tremendous amount of compassion. And the guys who drank in the bars I drank in had two basic lines. My wife doesn't understand, and I have no place to stay tonight. That was typically the end of their dialogue. So I have all of this compassion. So I would take this guy home with me, and when the bar closed, and we would get to my house, and I would send him into the bedroom, telling him I had to go to the bathroom. He'd go into the bedroom on the right. I would go into my bedroom on the left, and I had just sent him in with my roommate. Now, some nights that was okay with her. Some nights she didn't mind at all. Other nights, within a matter of minutes, there'd be all this banging on my bedroom door, which I had, of course, to get some sleep. I have 7 o'clock classes, so if it would have always been all right or never been all right, I'd have been okay. But she was so inconsistent, you'd have drank if you lived with her. She was so inconsistent. I didn't think I was leaving because she was annoyed with me. I didn't think I was leaving because I had one more drunk driving assault charge pending. And here's the thing. I'm driving down the street. The light comes on behind me. I pull over. The officer walks up. I slam my car door open, try and knock him in the private parts. Men are a little fussy about their private parts. So as the door's flying open, he jumps back to protect himself. And when he jumps back, it's really a good thing because now he's far enough away that I can get him in focus. And I think, one of him, one of me. One of him, one of me, I think I can take him. One of him, one of me, I think I'll try, and I go for him. It was a good fight. I was a lot younger then, but it was a good fight for a couple of minutes. But I wouldn't remember that back at the car he had a friend. And the friend had a radio. And the friend would call some more friends. And pretty soon it'd be 2 or 3 of them, one of me. It's not fair anymore. I say, Uncle, and they take me away. Next time the light comes on behind me, I pull over. The officer walks up. I slam my car door open, try and knock him in the private parts. He jumps back to protect himself. He gets far enough away and get him in focus. And I think, one of him, one of me. One of him, one of me, I think I can take him. One of him, one of me, I think I'll try, and I go for him. I wouldn't remember the friend, the radio, and the friend's friend. And pretty soon there'd be 4 or 5 of them, one of me. It's not fair anymore. I'd say, Uncle, and they take me away. When you get out of the car like that, they attach an assault charge. They don't even care that they won the fight. Drunk driving assault, drunk driving assault. And I didn't do that once or twice. I did that 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 times. I never remembered the friend, the radio, and the friend's friend. And that's the insanity of my disease. The insanity of my disease is I do the same thing over and over, and I think the results are going to be different. This time it's a fair fight. This time I'm going to take him. And I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I drank during a time when the state of California did not get their underwear in such a knot about drunk driving. I mean, I understand they're pretty testy about it now, but I never really had any consequences. I never had well, they took my license from me. But you don't really need that to drive a car. But I'd pay an attorney a lot of money, and he'd make a phone call, he'd write a letter, and that'd be the end of it. I'd never hear any more about it. But one time I had 2 pending at the same time, and my attorney was nervous. And I think if your attorney's nervous, you should worry about it. So I'm sitting in a bar worrying about the fact that my attorney's nervous, and I just started talking to this guy next to me, and as luck would have it, he worked in a mortuary. And I came up with a plan. I think we come up with really good plans really quickly, which is why at 40 years sober I am still actively sponsored, because still today I can come up with really good plans really quickly. And typically my solution is worse than the original problem, but I didn't have a sponsor then, so we went over to the mortuary and we got a death certificate. We put my name on it. We filled out all the pertinent information. We forged a doctor's signature, and we sent it to the court. Because they can't expect a lot from you if you're dead. And I don't know if it was 100, 150, 200 days. I don't know what it was later when the light came on behind me again. And this time the judge wanted to see me, and I couldn't figure out why. He never wanted to see me before. But you know what? I'm game. I'll go. And I'll never forget him, the look on his face. I'm standing there, and he looked at me. He said, "Miss Ochoa, tell me, how is it a dead person is standing in my court?" I shrugged my shoulders, and in all sincerity, I said, "I don't know, bad luck." And that's what I thought it was. It was bad luck. It was circumstances and conditions. It was the cops. It was you and they and them. Never occurred to me it had anything to do with alcohol. It never occurred to me. I thought I drank because I wanted to drink. I didn't know that I didn't have a choice. I was offered a job in Northern California. I loaded everything I owned into my car. I took some beer, I took some booze, and I headed north. I got to Santa Ana, which isn't the place you want to shoot for, but I was out of booze and I was thirsty. And I pulled off the freeway. I have a sense I can find the sleaziest bar in town without looking for it. I walked into this place. It was full of smoke. It had that wonderful used booze urine smell. Willie Nelson was singing on the jukebox, and I knew I was home. That's as far north as I ever got, 88 miles from where I started from. Alcohol had become my mother, my father, my God, my friend, my lover, my companion, my support. And at some point it had turned, and I've always believed it was in the middle of my first drink. At some point it had turned and began to strip me of self-esteem, self-worth, decency, integrity, honesty, pride, all the things we have going for us as human beings. And long before I got to you, it had taken it all. Long before I got to you, alcohol controlled every area of my life. Where I would live, where I would work, the people I would run with, and eventually the people I would run from. And I didn't have a clue. I was pulled over for what I pray God was my last drunk driving assault charge. I was doing the field sobriety test. I'm good at field sobriety tests. I practice field sobriety tests. I'm the kind of person, I get released from jail, I get the arrest report, I find out where I made my mistake, so I can practice that part so that next time I'll get that part right. And I always knew there'd be a next time. I had a high-profile job. The cops were always looking for me. They knew what I drove. They knew what I drove if I had my car, your car, a company car, a stolen car. They always knew what I drove, and they were always looking for me. So I practiced field sobriety tests a lot. On the last one, I even mentioned to the officer I thought I was doing A-plus work. And at the end of the test, he asked me to say the ABCs backwards. Well, the time before I had responded with, "Well, I can't even do that sober." So I just confessed. So on the last one, when he asked me to say the ABCs backwards, I said, "Okay." And I turned around. See, you think it's funny. He wasn't even amused. He just turned around, he cuffed me, took me to Orange County Jail, and put me in a cell with criminals. I mean, real criminals. They were like prostitutes, burglars. Women had been arrested for beating their husband, which I don't think should be a crime, but in California, they lock you up for it. And I went to court on that charge. I was 26 years old. I was drunk in court that morning. It's the only way I went to court. Only way I went to the grocery store, the laundromat, to work. The only way I did anything. Went to court, 26 years old, drunk. I had the public defender standing next to me the day the high-priced attorney was gone. The only thing I wanted to do since I was in the 4th grade was be a writer. I had an opportunity to go into that profession. I gave it up for one more drink. If it came between a job and a drink, I took a drink. A relationship and a drink, I took a drink. A family and a drink, I took a drink. Anything in a drink, I took a drink. And I'd given up my profession and choice for one more drink. I was unemployed and I was unemployable. And because the state of California was starting to get really upset about drunk driving and because of my past record, I was being sentenced to 10 years in prison. I have a son as a direct result of my alcoholism. I never wanted to be a mother. I found out that is not adequate birth control. I didn't like the kid. He wouldn't do anything. He wet and he cried. You'd think at 8 months old he'd get a little part-time job, but no. I was willing to use him that morning. I told the judge I was a single parent. I was self-supporting through my own contributions. And he told me to put my son in a foster home because I was an unfit mother. And he began to sentence me. In the middle of sentencing me, the expression on his face changed. The tone of his voice got different. And I know he was as surprised at what he was saying as I was at what I was hearing. Because he looked at me and he said, "I know this won't work for you, but I'm going to offer you one more chance." And he offered me an alternative, and part of that alternative was meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I wish I could tell you that I came here, I heard the 12 steps, I knew they were the solution to problems in my life, worked them all in the first week and skyrocketed to recovery, but that's not my story. I stood in the courtroom and thought about it, jail alternative. I've been to jail. There's more alcohol and other drugs inside the institution than there are some days on the street. If you know what to do, who to do it to, and you're willing to go to any lengths, and I always was. Jail alternative. Bill writes something in the book, Alcoholics Anonymous, something to this effect. He says, to be doomed to an alcoholic death or to live by spiritual principles. And he goes on to say this is not an easy choice for us. If you're new, please hear it. It's not an easy choice. To be doomed to an alcoholic death. And I don't think by alcoholic death, I don't think Bill means have the decency to lay down and let him put dirt on your face. I think the alcoholic death that Bill talks about is to continue to live in the despair, to continue to live in the incomprehensible demoralization, to continue to live sitting on bar stools, dreaming dreams and planning plans, and not being able to get off the bar stool to get it done. To continue to live promising the people we love, I'll never do it again, and meeting that promise with every fiber in your body. And then you're drunk again. And then you see that look in their eye, that look that says, why did you do it? You promised you weren't going to do it. I think that's the alcoholic death that Bill talks about. To be doomed to an alcoholic death or to live by spiritual principles. I think that's what I was being asked that morning, but I didn't have a clue. I had that morning what I know this morning was a moment of clarity. Because as clear as I knew anything, I knew if I went to jail one more time, I would either die in the institution or I'd become institutionalized for life. I didn't know why I knew it, but I knew it. I took the alternative. I left the courtroom and I drank for 3 more months. In retrospect, I can tell you I didn't drink a greater quantity. Physically, it had been impossible to drink a greater quantity of alcohol. But I drank with a sense of urgency and a desperation I had never known. And on October 4th, 1975, I accessed God's grace. And I couldn't have told you I did that day. But I can tell you this morning that that's exactly what happened to me. Because you see, I never tried to not drink. I never tried to control my drinking. I just always drank. And never tried to not drink. And yet on October 4th, 1975, I woke up and I didn't take a drink of alcohol. And I didn't take a drink that entire day. And the next day I came to my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I didn't know what A&A was. I thought it was something like the Parents Without Partners. And a lot of days it is. But I had no idea what you people are going to do to me or for me. I heard 2 things in that meeting. I heard we don't drink between meetings. I didn't see any of you drinking in the meeting. And I thought if you don't drink in the meeting, you don't drink between the meetings. When do you drink? I don't know how that impacts you, but it made me nervous. The other thing I heard was that the answers were in that book, Alcoholics Anonymous. So after the meeting, I stole the book. I mean, God knows I need to have the answers. I can't tell you how irritated I was. Not only could I not find the answers in that book, I couldn't even find the questions. And I thought, oh, dear God, I've stolen the wrong book, and I'm going to have to go back and get the right one. And it's humiliating for a thief to have stolen the wrong book. So Wednesday, with 5 days of sobriety, I came back to Alcoholics Anonymous to get the answer book. It's the only reason I came back. I don't think it matters what your motives are, what your intentions are, what your desires are. I think what's important is what your actions are. Wednesday, with 4 days of sobriety, I came back to Alcoholics Anonymous to get the answer book, and I've been coming back ever since. My court program said I had to go to 2 meetings a week. I thought that was really obsessive. But I was willing to go to any lengths to stay out of jail. So I would come here and I would sit with you. And I wasn't a kind, sweet newcomer. I was the newcomer in the back of the room that would stand up while the speaker was talking. I'd tell the speaker exactly what I thought of them. It was usually profanities, but I hung them together in such a way it sounded like a sentence. And somebody in front of me would turn around and smile and say, keep coming back. And I'd flip her off and wave my court card and tell her I didn't have a choice. I carry a knife in my boot. If you irritated me, I'd throw it at the literature rack. Always aimed at the piece of literature a member's eye view. I didn't always hit it, but this isn't the bedrock of mental health, but pretty soon you weren't coming up to me. People weren't approaching me anymore, but you tolerated me, and I'm so grateful that you understood the traditions. I'm so grateful that you didn't throw me away. You just kept telling me to keep coming back. I think you meant to another meeting, but you just kept. And I sat here and I listened to your stories. And I listened to your stories. I'm eternally grateful that the men and women of Alcoholics Anonymous got to this podium and shared their story. They didn't come up here and say, I'm not going to tell you what it used to be like. We all know how to drink. They came here and they shared their story. I needed to hear their story because without me giving my permission and without me knowing it was happening, their alcoholism was touching mine. 8.5 months away from my last drink, your alcoholism woke mine up. 8.5 months away from my last drink, I was in the worst pain that I had ever been in, the pain of not drinking and not recovering. 8.5 months away from my last drink, that pain drove me to my knees. And on my knees, I admitted to my innermost self that I was alcoholic. And the book says this is the first step in recovery. I admitted to my innermost self that I was alcoholic. Selfish and self-centered, it's the nature of my disease. Selfish and self-centered. I hear people say, let us love you until you can love yourself. I have loved myself my entire life. My message is let us love you until you can love somebody else. Selfish and self-centered is the root of my problem. I think the greatest, I'm almost out of time, so I'm going faster, using more oxygen. And but I need to share this because I think the most important prayer, I think the most powerful prayer we have in Alcoholics Anonymous is the 7-step prayer. The 7-step prayer says something to this effect. It says, take all of me, good and bad. How powerful is that for an alcoholic of my nature? Take it all, good and bad. I don't have to judge it anymore. Is it a good thing, a bad thing, a right thing, a wrong thing, my will or God's will? Who cares? Take it all. Leave me with this. Leave me with what I need to be of service to you and my fellows. How powerful is that? Selfish and self-centered, that's who I am at my core. I have come here and done very little. I admitted to my innermost self that I was alcoholic. I came to believe the people in AA were telling me the truth. I made a decision to do what you said you had done. I wrote about my favorite topic, me. I bored somebody for about an hour and a half listening to it, and as a result, I'm in a position where all I care about is being of service to God and my fellows. How powerful is that? And it's so incredibly simple, and I think too many people miss it. 8 and 9 were conventional ways of getting rid of conventional guilt. I felt guilty because I was guilty. I did a lot of things to a lot of people for one more drink. And it wasn't just saying sorry. It was about living my life different. And I don't know how to live. This is the only way I know how to live. But you know how to live different. So you come here and you share how to be a daughter and not take a drink, and how to be a mother and not take a drink, and how to be a friend and not take a drink, and how to be an employee and not take a drink. And you allow me to take your experience out into the world and live it. And it becomes my experience. I am the woman I am this morning because the men and women of Alcoholics Anonymous have shared their experience with me. 10, 11, and 12 keep me in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous. 10 says the process is powerful. Keep using it. Keep writing about it, talking about it. Ask God to remove the defect. Make amends if necessary. And then the most important part, and the part we so often forget, turn your attention to somebody you can help. What is it I can do for you? How can I be of service? My prayer in the morning is simply, thy will be done. I truly believe the rest of the day is God's business. My prayer at night is a little scary, or offer to anybody who'd like to use it. My prayer at night is, dear God, please have people treat me tomorrow exactly the way I treated people today. And when I know I'm going to say that prayer tonight, it will hold me in good stead. I won't flip you off on the freeway anymore. And I don't live my life so much out of virtue as I do knowing I'm going to say that prayer. And step 12 is the greatest gift you've ever given me. An opportunity to take a little of my past and give it to another alcoholic and look into her eyes and say, honey, you don't have to live that way anymore. Take my hand, come with me, sit in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous. My life today is beyond my wildest imagination. My son, who was 11 months old when I got sober, I brought him here with me. You taught him everything he knows. But he had a journey he had to go on. He went to places where alcoholic men go, and he did things that no human being should do. And 13 years ago, I called a man and said, my son needs help. And he knew the traditions. He didn't say, tell the boy to call me. He said, where is he? And he got the address, and he picked up my son, and he brought him to the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous. A little over 9 years ago, my grandson was born. I was there when he was born. His head was born. The doctor turned the head, and I looked into the eyes of God. And at that point, for 31 years, I realized you have allowed me to stand here and look into the eyes of God. I had built a wall between me and you to keep you out because I don't want to be hurt. And one brick at a time, you have taken that wall down. And you have taught me how to love you. And as a result, my grandson was born. He walked into my heart, and he changed my life. I have never loved a human being as much as I love him. And I know I'm out of time, but I want to tell you this. If you said to me, I'll give you a shot of Jack Daniels if you give me Eden, my grandson, I'm not going to give you my grandson for a shot of Jack Daniels. If you say, I'll give you a quart of Jack Daniels if you give me your grandson, I'm not going to give him to you for a quart. I'll give you a case. I'm not going to give him to you for a case. I'll give you the distillery if you give me your grandson. I'm not giving him to you. But I'll tell you this, if I have one shot of Jack Daniels, I will give him up this quick for the second one. And so I stay in the middle of you. When I was 4 days sober, an old man told me if I didn't drink, I wouldn't get drunk. And if I didn't get drunk, my life would get different, and he didn't lie to me. From the top of my head to the tip of my toes, I've never had it so good. I want to ask you, please, when we pray tonight, please keep my nephew, Ryan, in your prayers. He's 27 years old. He's in a hospital dying of pancreatitis as a direct result of alcoholism. He's got me and he's got my son as his examples, but he needs your prayers. He needs your prayers in order to hear the access God's grace. Please pray for Ryan when we take a minute at the end of the meeting. And I'll end with this. I end with it because it's We heard it when chapter 5 was read. It's a line in chapter 5 that says, "There is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now." Thank you.
Abby, you're going to ask questions.
Okay.
If you can repeat the question and then answer.
Okay, questions, my favorite part. I love questions. Questions. Bye now. Questions? No questions? I could have kept, yes. My parents alcoholic? I don't know my father. My father left when my mother was pregnant with me, which scarred my entire life, and I carried the message of there's something terribly wrong with me. My own father couldn't stick around, so that message fueled a lot of my alcoholism, but I don't know if he's alcoholic. My mother was not alcoholic. My mother was a major untreated Al-Anon of the controlling variety. I think if you have an untreated Al-Anon, you need to have the enabling variety, but my stepfather was a raging alcoholic. So I had alcoholism in the home, if that's what you're asking, but whether it's genetic or not, I don't know. I just love to drink. I'd like to blame COPD on my mother, but I can't. I don't doubt I can blame my alcoholism. Hi. You're curious about my career? I didn't. They didn't want me back after I got sober and made amends. I thought how rude of them. Everybody else was coming to AA and getting their job back as CEO of Bank of America at 30 days, and I couldn't even get a piddly little job as a reporter back. But of course, I was angry and had resentments and complained to my sponsor a lot, which is another reason you guys need sponsors, somebody to complain to. Complained to her a lot. And what happened for me is God opened doors that I wasn't paying attention. I think if you're working a program of Alcoholics Anonymous, my experience is God will open doors, and God opened doors and I wasn't paying attention, and I started walking through the doors as doing favors for somebody or something, and as a result, I've had a career for the last 25 years in treatment, and I never wanted to work in treatment, but I've had a career for 25 years doing that.
Okay.
Yes, over here.
How do you, have you ever had any long-term resentment? And if so, how do you get rid of a resentment?
Have I ever had a long-term resentment, and how do I get over it? I don't know what you mean by, I've had long-term resentments. Anything over an hour for me is long-term, including relationships. But I think the way that I deal with resentments is twofold. There's a story in the book that talks about praying for the person for 2 weeks and pray that they get everything, they have everything you want. That's a little tough at the beginning of the resentment. I do it with clenched teeth and knowing God knows it's just a joke. But I do that. I pray for the person. But what works most effectively for me with resentments is I turn my attention to somebody I can help. I find another newcomer. I work with another woman. I start going through the book with another woman. When I'm going through the book with another alcoholic, that resentment, whatever it is, it sort of loses its fire and it sort of dissipates. But I think resentments, I think we all get them.
Do you remember if there was like a particular time that you realized that AA might just work?
Was there a particular time I realized AA might work? I think when I was 8.5 months sober and I admitted to my innermost self that I was alcoholic, I think I knew that it worked at that point. But I didn't jump into the steps willingly and help, like anxiously. I've always argued about every step before I worked it. I've always looked for other ways around it because, I'm intelligent. I looked for other ways rather than do the step. And then I would do the step and I'd come to AA and report how magical it was because it works. Like I had made that up my own self. But I knew it worked. I just resisted a little bit. But I'm 40 years sober, which says if you don't drink, you can resist it all you want. Yes? Hi, Tanya. I knew you were familiar back there. What treatment center do I work at now? I worked at Touchstones, which is a residential treatment for adolescents for 23 years. And speaking of long-term resentments, until I was forced to resign. I didn't want to resign. I was forced to resign. So I had a long-term resentment about that one. And really didn't get over it until I confronted the CEO who forced me to resign and made him incredibly uncomfortable, and that kind of took care of the resentment for me. And so currently I contract and I contract as a consultant for several treatment centers. Yes, Darlene.
Did you ever have any interaction with the last judge that sentenced you that gave you that amazing break?
Did I ever have any interaction with the last judge who sentenced me and gave me the amazing break? I don't think he knew it was an amazing break. I did go back, and when I was 5 years sober, I went and took him to lunch and gave him my 5-year chip and thanked him for offering me the alternative. And he was really grateful because that program that I went through, he had offered that program to a lot of people. And quite frankly, the sad news is very few of us stay sober. Those of you who are in treatment this morning, I want you to know that very few of you are going to stay sober. And you can be the one who does. I was the one voted most likely to not succeed. And out of that group, I'm the only one who maintained consistent sobriety. So you can be most likely to not succeed and be sober. But I think it's important to go back to judges. I've gone back to all the police officers and made amends. I think it's important it was important for me.
Hi, in the last 40 years that you've been sober, have you noticed that AA has veered away from its own traditions? And if so, how?
Okay, this is the last question. So has AA gone away from the traditions over 40 years? And this is just my opinion, so don't throw stones at me. And don't come argue with me after the meeting because I have to go to the bathroom. So I can't have long arguments after the meeting, but I'm afraid it has. I'm afraid that we've stepped away from singleness of purpose. I'm afraid that we've tried to be too inclusive and that we're moving away from what our primary purpose is. I think that we are expecting more from newcomers than they when it says, don't give a newcomer your phone number, take theirs, because they're not going to call you. Take their number and call them. I think we were always more proactive when I was new. But I think the singleness of purpose is the biggest veering from the traditions that I've seen, and it's really frightening to me. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Sober Sunrise. If you enjoyed today's episode, please give it a thumbs up as it will help share the message. Until next time, have a great day. Welcome to Sober Sunrise, a podcast bringing